All right. Hello and welcome back to round 5 coverage of the Eternal Extravaganza 6 Platinum Satellite, hosted by the Bearded Dragon Games in Bernardsville, New Jersey. So we have a spicy matchup straight out of 2010 coming up for this round. We have Fish at 4-0.
Yep.
Don't ask me how.
4-0 Merfolk and then 4-0 Shardless Bug.
Yes.
Shardless Sultai, whatever you want to call it. So Shardless Sultai has been a legacy staple for years. It's like the Jund deck of the format. It just incorporates blue cards so that it can be kind of like a so that it can be honest and keep the combo deck somewhat honest.
Yeah.
But it's the attrition-based, grindy deck of the format.
It also gets to play new modern staple Ancestral Visions, which is actually much better in this format because it works as a recall when you cascade, rather than just being suspended for 3 turns after you're dead.
You'll see Shardless be a little bit more aggressive with their brainstorms than other blue decks because they can just backdoor themselves into a draw 3.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot.
Yeah, they often will rig their cascades.
So Jose on the green sleeves is rocking Shardless Sultai.
Yes.
And Joe Hunt on the navy blue sleeves is rocking Merfolk.
Yes.
And
so this should be an interesting
one. We're down to
one.
the match shortly.
So we don't know who's on the play, but the 7s, at least from the... okay.
Yep.
The 7s
we're down to the match.
on the Shardless player's side look good. It looks to be like 3 lands, a disruptive spell. It looks like a Hymn to Turok, a Shardless Agent, a Deathrite Shaman, and 3 lands, and I can't tell the 7th card.
It is 2 duels, a fetch, Deathrite, Shardless Hymn, and 1 other card.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the Merfolk player not happy with his 7, so he's going to go down to 6. Hopefully he draws True Name and then other worse Merfolk. True Name,
but
obviously, the
Shardless
marquee
is
card.
one of the few decks in Legacy that can actually beat a Resolve True Name.
Yes, with things like Golgari Charm.
As they have a main deck Toxic Deluge, in addition to Thoughtseizes, Hymns, and Forces to deal with it.
Yeah.
And occasionally they can also deal with it with Liliana of the Veil.
Yes.
Which Jose has 2 copies in his main deck.
Lily of the Veil less likely to be an out against Merfolk, which you're going to hear me call Fish. So Fish is just a different name for a creature disruptive strategy.
Yeah.
In
And
this
the
case-
initial ones played Merfolk years ago when the name came to popularity.
because of things like Curse Catcher.
And it just kind of stuck.
Yeah.
As it's been like aggressive, like tempo-based vintage decks have been called Fish before.
Yeah, even if they have 0 Merfolk.
Noble Fish, if you will.
Yeah. So...
Even if instead of Fish they have Trigon Predator, which is not a fish at all.
It's a Skyfish. So we have a keep on 6 for the Merfolk player and a Scry top. And then the Shardless Bug player is going to open with a natural Underground Sea into a Deathrite Shaman. And then we have an Island and a Pass from Joe, which indicates, I don't know, potentially a Cantrip, potentially a Daze, but no Ether Vial.
Jose also has a Wasteland in his hand. But he's going to elect to go with the second Underground Sea and him.
So hopefully we see the usual D6 resolution of him, rather than the I Choose You method.
He's hoping to get the... Well, he got 1 through 6, so that's good. That's good, yep.
I just strongly prefer anything that isn't the I Choose You method, where you just pick cards out of their hand
Oh,
that
yeah,
they're holding.
Sure thing. And
So
then you
6,
must
of course, reroll.
There you go.
There's never not a reroll on a hymn resolution. Like, he gets a Harbinger of the Tides and a Mutavault. So, not teaming up to cast each other right now, but still potentially good anytime you can randomly Thoughtseize a land. And
So it's important in this matchup for Joe to basically get a critical mass of Lords.
Yes.
And one of the best cards at doing that is Silverglade Adept, because when the Lord comes down, Silverglade Adept immediately represents an unblockable 3 damage.
Yes.
So then the opponent must deal with the Lord in play, and then the second Lord for another unblockable 3 damage, and that's how Merfolk spirals out of control. And if any of the Lords don't get killed, as we can see here...
So we're going to see a Thoughtseize, and the Thoughtseize is going to see a hand that is a Master of Waves, a Master of the Pearl Trident, which is just a Lord of Atlantis, and 2 islands.
2 $10 islands, which are great.
Yeah. I mean, mine are foil, but,
I don't play those.
Not everyone likes to play...
I play white bordered lands.
Not everyone, especially Fish. Fish players generally have less nice lands, because to get 16 $100 lands, might as well just get some duels.
8 copies of basic islands.
Yeah, you might as well just get some duels. Right, 2 Underground Sea, much better.
What would you rather own? 20 $10 islands or an Underground Sea?
Well, Underground's like $350, so
yeah, so probably an
not
Underground
close.
Sea, right?
I mean, I would even just take 3 $65 foil islands, even though that's only $195.
An early Shardless Agent is definitely a good sign
Yes.
for Joe.
Lily, unfortunately, not something he can cast, but instead he'll choose to cantrip and get a death touch threat.
Strix is like a soft brick because while it does replace itself, it doesn't actually do much because
Yes.
nothing's going to be blocking.
Yes.
Oh, well,
He did Thoughtseize the Lord,
He did
though.
Thoughtseize the Lord away, so it still trades with Silvergill anyway.
Yeah,
So
so
elects not to attack because he realizes the importance of the unblockable threat in the future, and he wants to make his Master of Waves better.
Yes, and one thing you'll notice out of the Merfolk deck, something you might see it do in Modern, is cantrip a lot off of things like Spreading Seas.
Mm-hmm.
Legacy's blue heavy enough that there's just no need to be turning on Island Walk. It's just likely to be on.
Yeah, Merfolk in Legacy is an aggressive. It's an aggressive creature deck, but it's also kind of sneakily a prison deck in that it plays like True Name, which is a really hard to deal with threat, and 4 main deck Chalice of the Void.
Yes, sometimes
from
even No Rod.
Wastelands. So it can disrupt you a little bit. It has back to basics out of the sideboard too to further that line when it's when that roll is the one you need to take.
And True Name is extra good out of the Merfolk archetype because it is in fact a Merfolk. So it is affected by all of the lords. Obviously, the unblockable, not a relevant addition to something.
And one of the strongest things that Joe can do is use Phantasmal Image to make a copy of True Name Nemesis.
Yes.
And he has 3 copies of Phantasmal Image in his main deck to add to the True Name Nemesis. It actually sequences really well because when their Vial is on 2, they have 3 mana.
Yeah.
So they cast True Name, Vial, and Image have 2 True Names immediately.
Yeah, and then you can just untap and play 2 lords because you make your 4th land drop. That's one of the most disgusting
Shardless
starts.
is in great shape if they ever resolve something like Toxic Deluge, but that's such a small percentage of their deck that getting to that point is usually the hard part.
Yes. So it looks like we're going to see a Jace here. Yes. So the Death Right activated to make mana, and we're going to see a Jace to Mind Sculptor enter.
Shardless is filled with so many powerful cards that you can't really stumble, and if the Thoughtseizes hit the right thing and the bug deck's not under too much trouble, then they can put the game away pretty quickly as they have a great closing speed.
So we see
between Planeswalkers and some of these attrition creatures.
Yeah. So we see him activate Jace's +2 ability, which lets you look at target player's top card. So he feels that he's doing well on the battlefield, I suppose, if he's willing to just peek.
Yeah, I think that Joe is probably going to cast his Master of Waves here.
Yeah, which would net him 2 tokens, right? Because the
two
Silvergill is a
tokens.
colorless and a blue.
Oh, he elected not to. Okay.
Okay, so he found an Ether Vial, but I don't know if he has anything to actually do with the Ether Vial. And he's just going to check the Jace's loyalty by attacking it for 2.
See, he also has an island in hand, so he could have been able to, if he drew Curse Catcher, he would have been able to play it and then play Master Waves anyway, so I don't actually like playing the Vial there. Probably just play Master Waves assuming it's going to get bounced the next turn.
That's fair, yeah.
And you can replay it again, and if you drew a 1-drop, it'll help out a little bit.
Yeah, especially because the 2 creatures will help you check the Jace a little bit better. Obviously, when it gets unsummoned, all of your elementals will still die. But
yeah, this is a pretty academic one for Jose. He's just cruising.
But Master Wave is another card that combos extremely well with Phantasmal Image, getting you double triggers and a second pump.
Yep, and sometimes just getting lethal right out of nowhere.
Yeah. Also, Mutavault is definitely the land to watch in this deck because it's both an elemental and a fish, Merfolk. So it's very often just the biggest thing in play.
Elementalry, my dear Watson.
Well, unfortunately, it was elementary for the Shardless player.
Yep, it was.
So we can take a peek at sideboards now.
Yep.
So the Merfolk player has access to 2 Back to Basics, a Hydro Blast, 2 Spell Pierce, 3 Submerge, a Force of Will, a Relic of Progenitus, 2 Grafdigger's Cage, 2 additional Harbinger of the Tides, and 1 Tidebinder Mage.
I think we will see Joe bring in the Tidebinder Mage, the Submerges, and then he will also likely bring in Relic.
Yeah.
And possibly Back to Basics.
Yeah, so I think from where I'm at Miracles, I have a Back to Basics in my sideboard, and it just basically comes in against every deck that has mostly dual lands, even if they have access to Abrupt Decay. Making them have to have Decay, it often is at worst a Time Walk. So I've actually just found that card to be fantastic. And I mean, that's in a deck where I play 5 duels. Merfolk not featuring any lands that won't untap under it.
This Merfolk deck is a little light on Lords, too. It really emphasizes the True Name angle.
Yes.
But the consequence of that is that it's diminished the Lord's angle a little bit, and it adds some more main deck interaction in a copy of GT, 4 Dazes,
and
2 Harbinger of the Tides, in addition to 3 Forces.
Yeah.
So the opportunity cost for that is that you're only playing 6 Lords main deck, which puts a little bit of pressure on your Phantasmal Images to be Lords when they're not True Names.
But it also lets you have more flexibility with your things like Master of Waves and Silvergill.
But you're a little bit weaker to something like, just generic spot removal.
Yeah,
Abrupt Decay or Lightning Bolt what have you. The two
yeah.
fatal pushes in Jose's board that will undoubtedly come in.
Yeah, those are
You
going to
just
be
want
fantastic.
a preponderance of resources in this regard. Like you just want you're going to board in the Deluge. I probably wouldn't board in Golgari Charm.
Really? Okay.
I just think that. Oh well, it hits True Names.
Yeah.
I would board in Golgari Charm. I was thinking that Silvergill Adept getting tagged is not really worth it. But anything that kills True Names is good.
Yeah,
Because
so-
you're not going to take out spot removal, and the spot removal will hit the Lords.
So you're looking at the Diabolic Edict also then?
I don't know about Diabolic Edict just because of the presence of man lands.
Yeah, the Mutavault just calls it.
I think you can do a little better than Diabolic Edict, but I like both Fatal Pushes, and I like the Deluge and the Golgari Charm, and I like keeping Liliana because
Yeah.
it answers it answers True Name occasionally as well.
Yeah.
Although Diabolic Edict might be a little bit better than Liliana, but Diabolic Edict gets
Doesn't have
Curse Catchered.
Yeah. It also doesn't have a second mode, right? Sometimes the Lily pluses will just close out the game if your opponent's like sandbagging a few things or has been cantripping a bunch of Silvergills and spinning their wheels. Sometimes just him into Lily can just leave them on
With
empty.
only 2 copies of Wasteland and minimal ways to interact with Deathrite Shaman, Merfolk doesn't really tax your mana as a resource too much. So I think that the additional mana does provide an appreciable upgrade from Lily versus Diabolic Edict.
Okay.
It's possible that you just want everything that says destroy target creature or removes a creature. So and then like trim on things like Hymn to Turok. I do like Thoughtseize because it can take exactly one certain thing. I don't love Hymn to Turok because it's not guaranteed to take what you need, and they have a lot of redundancy too.
But I
so
think
like you
that-
might hit a Lord and they leave a Lord.
I think that I'm maybe shaving, but I do think that we still want some number of copies of that card. Like maybe I'd go down from 2 to 1, but I think that you just even if you're him, Mind Rots 2 lands, it's still quite good.
The games that Shardless loses are generally rather fast.
That's fair.
And as a result of that and preparing for that, I like trimming or just cutting Ancestral Vision entirely.
Yes, I agree
As
with
you
that.
don't really have time for that, and usually a resolved Goy for 2 is going to be enough to finish the game anyway. So you don't really need to worry about grinding them out and drawing a bunch of cards. You kind of need to kill the first 2 things they play, stick a threat or 2, and then get it done.
So
I also
surprising-
don't like the Jace; it's too slow.
Yeah, I agree with that. And a surprising thing that he doesn't have access to out of the board is something like an Engineered Plague. He's opted for Dread of Night instead. And we've seen that mostly because of how Elves has largely fallen off the map, and Fish is relatively rare to see these days also.
You can board in the pushes, the cage,
but
the
something-
pulse, the deluge, the charm against elves, and still have critical massive removal.
But something like E-Plague would also really punish this lower Lords build.
It's just too narrow.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I understand what you're saying, but like I think it's more important to beat the tier 1 deck, which is
I agree.
Death and Taxes.
I'm just saying I think that if this had been maybe 6 or 10 months ago, we definitely would have seen an E-Plague floating somewhere.
E-Plague was more common when Goblins was a thing,
Okay.
and
I haven't seen Goblins
I haven't
in a long
seen
time.
Plague in Legacy decks in a long time.
Okay. Well,
I played like 2 Plagues in my Stoneblade deck like 5 years ago because I just hate elves so much.
I was playing Elves about a year and a half ago, and I was just constantly running into E-Plague, so much so that, like, I think it was SCG Philly, maybe about a year ago, just the last time I played Elves. I beat Eldrazi round 1 through turn 1 Chalice on 1 game 1, and then lost
Was it
to Blue.
open or a classic?
It was an open.
Legacy open, okay.
Yeah, so that was the only round I won all day with Elves, was into turn 1 Chalice on 1. I then lost to lands, Blue-Red Delver lands, and dropped and sold the deck and bought Miracles.
I played a match at the Players' Championship where I was playing Merfolk. Metagame call, I actually hate Merfolk.
Yeah.
And
Don't tell Joe.
Yep, I won't. I'm sure he also hates Merfolk. He plays Jund in like every format.
That's fair, yes.
He's probably borrowing Merfolk right now. We can see Joe went to 6.
Obviously, he's a solid player, though, if he's able to just borrow the deck
Yeah,
and
for
do
sure.
quite well with it. Very solid play.
Just keep swimming.
Yeah, Finding Nemo, Finding Dory. Which one's better?
That was a Finding Nemo reference.
No, I'm saying,
I
but
never
which
saw
movie's
Finding-
better? Put you on the spot.
I never saw Finding Dory.
All right.
Taking the easy way out there.
Okay. The non-answer. I like it. I can get behind it.
I did like Finding Nemo though. It's rock solid story.
Finding Nemo is quite good.
I don't think that's what they hired us for, though, unfortunately. I'd love to talk about animated movies for a while.
So it looks like Joe's on a mulligan to 6 right now.
It looks like
He's evaluating a 5, actually.
6 spells, too. Oh, it's... Ew.
So this, I believe, is him mulliganing to 4 down a game. So rough for the Atlanteans here, but I mean, I guess there's a reason that the city no longer exists.
Oh, I thought you meant people from Atlanta, and I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? And then I realized you meant Atlantis,
Yes.
as in the city that is now underwater.
Yes.
Mulligans are great because we just talk about whatever we want
Yeah.
when